How dumb is that? And think about it in terms of if any other business in this country operated that way, where they would tell you, I'm sorry, we're not going to serve you, who's sitting behind a very big desk and wielding a lot of power. But at the end of the day, he's a scared little boy who feels that this is the only way he can get payback. I mean, this is just not normal. This is the musings and actions of a petty, afraid little man.
He's a petty, afraid little man with way too much power. Michael Steele just dropped this truth bomb about Trump on live TV, and now the Orange Man is having a total meltdown. You won't believe what Steele revealed about Trump's leadership style, comparing it to a toddler playing with a Monopoly board. The ex-president is fuming, and his response only proves Steele's point. Stick around to see exactly what set Trump off and why this might be the most accurate roasting he's ever received. Hey, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. We know you want to. Go ahead, we'll wait. Alright, appreciate it. Now back to the video. Michael Steele just dropped a nuclear-sized truth bomb on Trump, and folks, the fallout is everywhere. When the former Republican National Committee chairman goes on live TV and calls the former president a petty, afraid little man with way too much power, that's not just another critic taking a swing at Trump. That's friendly fire from inside his own political house. Steele didn't just throw out random insults like most of Trump's critics. No, he backed up his harsh words with some serious insider knowledge. What makes Steele's takedown so powerful is his Republican pedigree. This isn't some Democrat or liberal commentator that Trump can easily dismiss. Steele ran the entire Republican Party from 2009 to 2011. He's seen how the sausage gets made. He's been in those closed-door meetings. When someone with that kind of insider Republican status starts pointing out Trump's flaws, even the MAGA hat crowd has to pause for a second. Steele didn't just call Trump names and walk away. He laid out specific examples of why Trump's leadership style is so dangerous. One of the most devastating criticisms? Steele flat out said Trump doesn't do sensible.
You're going to get used to the walk and ignore. because the questions are going to come fast and furious. So get used to learning how to walk and ignore those questions being thrown at you.
I mean, the American people, you're looking at this and you think this is normal and okay? To single out a law firm that happened to represent a political opponent of Donald Trump and the lawyers who were involved in cases and litigations against him. I think every law firm in this town and around the country should stand together and say, go ahead, try it. Try it. I mean, are you serious?
Think about that for a second. A former chairman of the Republican Party essentially told America that the former president lacks basic common sense. That's not something you hear every day from someone who used to lead Trump's own political party. The former RNC chairman didn't stop there. He explained how Trump approaches the presidency like it's just another business venture. And we all know how many of those ended up in bankruptcy court. But running a country isn't like running a casino or slapping your name on a building. Steele pointed out that Trump's business-style approach to government shows a complete misunderstanding of what presidential leadership actually requires. Perhaps the most brutal part of Steele's assessment was his comparison of Trump's grasp of international relations to that of a casino owner. According to Steele, Trump's entire foreign policy philosophy boils down to they like me or they don't. That's it. No nuance, no understanding of history, no strategic thinking, just a simplistic ego-driven approach to dealing with other nations. When America's standing in the world is reduced to whether foreign leaders stroke Trump's ego, we've got serious problems.
I'm hoping that we all stand together and go ahead, make our day. You know, you want to tie this up in litigation. Let's get this in front of the Supreme Court and let's hear what those lawyers have to say. The goods you ordered because you ordered from a competitor, or you also contribute money to an organization we don't like, is to go after the law firms who just did what they're supposed to do, what they were hired to do. And so I'm hoping the legal community, as an active member of the legal community.
What really gives Steele's critique its extra punch is that he's not speculating from the outside. He's seen the inner workings of the Republican Party. He understands the machinery that Trump now controls. When he warns about Trump's fear-based leadership style, he's speaking from a place of knowledge that few critics can match. Steele made it clear that Trump's decisions aren't driven by careful consideration of what's best for America, but by his own fears and insecurities. And how did Trump respond to this devastating critique? Exactly as Steele predicted, with a childish meltdown that only proved the petty afraid little man label was spot on. Instead of addressing any of Steele's specific points with thoughtful counter-arguments, Trump did what he always does: attacked the messenger, claimed victimhood, and avoided the substance entirely. It's like Steele handed Trump a script, and Trump read it word for word. The specific examples Steele provided about Trump's fear-driven leadership style explains so much about his presidency. All those impulsive decisions, the constant staff turnover, the obsession with loyalty above competence.
And the string of law firms that are associated with the individuals that you just identified should be the first ones out of the gate. What is the point of the oath that we swore as lawyers, right? Who have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law and to protect those who have a matter to bring before the courts of this country. And so I'm hoping they stand up. I'm hoping this is just a momentary pause as they're sitting there writing the narrative that they're going to put out there publicly.
It all makes perfect sense when you view it through the lens Steele provided. A man driven by fear makes erratic decisions. A man without understanding of complex issues resorts to simplistic solutions. A man who sees the presidency as a business opportunity puts personal gain above national interest. But here's what's really fascinating about Steele's comments. They reveal the growing divide within Republican leadership about Trump's fitness for office. When someone who once led the entire Republican Party is willing to go on national television and essentially call the party's standard bearer an incompetent, frightened man-child, that's not just a personal grudge. That's a symptom of a party in crisis. Steele represents a faction of Republicans who see Trump not as their salvation, but as their destruction. The division within Republican leadership is just the tip of the iceberg compared to what Steele revealed about Trump's media strategy. What if everything you thought about Trump's fake news crusade was completely backward? According to Steele, this isn't some righteous battle against biased reporting. It's actually Trump's panic button, his go-to escape hatch, whenever reality gets too uncomfortable for his fragile ego. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how quickly Trump screams fake news whenever someone points out one of his mistakes? It's faster than my Aunt Betty claiming her slot machine was rigged after losing her social security check. Turns out there's a method to this madness that goes way beyond just being cranky. Steele didn't just critique Trump's leadership, he performed a complete autopsy on Trump's relationship with the truth. What Steele exposed is that Trump's constant attacks on the media aren't about accuracy at all. They're a calculated defense mechanism designed specifically to shield him from criticism. It's like Trump's wearing criticism-proof underwear, except instead of fabric, it's made entirely of deflection and denial. The moment someone points out a flaw, the fake news alarm sounds, and suddenly his supporters are too busy being angry at CNN to notice that their orange messiah just said Finland is part of Russia or whatever nonsense came out of his mouth that day.
This one man, I don't care if he is the president of the United States, because everything I was taught as a young lawyer was no one is above the law. Everything I was taught as a sworn officer of the court was nobody's above the law. We're here to defend those who otherwise would be persecuted by the very people like Donald Trump. That's what we're called to do. And we don't decide whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing for us financially, right? And so whether you're in a corporate setting or a litigation setting, no matter what you do in the law, we're all part of the same fraternity and sorority of lawyers.
But the real bombshell from Steele is how he characterized Trump's relationship with the media as adversarial by design. This isn't some accidental feud that developed over time. It's a deliberate strategy Trump depends on. The former president needs enemies like a vampire needs blood. Without them, he'd have to actually address his own failures. And we all know Orange Turd doesn't do accountability. It's always someone else's fault. The deep state, Hillary's emails, Obama's tan suit, or that pesky wind that messes up his cotton candy hair. According to Steele, what happens behind closed doors when Trump sees negative coverage is even worse than what we witness publicly. Imagine a grown man with nuclear codes throwing a temper tantrum that would make a 2-year-old say, "Dude, pull yourself together." When faced with facts that contradict his inflated self-image, Trump doesn't engage with the substance. He just hits the fake news button and moves on. It's like arguing with a parrot that's been taught only one phrase, except the parrot has millions of Twitter followers and might run the country again. The genius of this strategy, and I use genius in the same way you might call someone who figured out how to cheat at solitaire a genius, is how it creates an alternate reality for Trump supporters. Steele explained that by consistently labeling any criticism as fake, Trump effectively builds a shield around his base, a protective bubble where negative information about their beloved leader simply bounces off. It's like Trump's created his own little universe where facts are optional and the only truth that matters is whatever rambling thought popped into his head during his morning toilet tweet session. When Steele himself delivered his brutal assessment of Trump, what was the response? You guessed it. The automatic fake news defense kicked in without addressing a single specific point Steele made. It's Trumpism 101. When confronted with criticism, don't address the substance, just attack the source. That way, you never have to deal with those pesky things called facts. It's like playing chess with a pigeon. No matter how good your move is, the pigeon will knock over the pieces, poop on the board, and strut around like it won anyway. What's most disturbing about the pattern Steele identified is how effectively it manipulates Trump's base through controlling what information they trust. By creating a world where the only reliable source of information is Trump himself, he's essentially built a cult of personality that operates outside the bounds of objective reality. It's not about making America great again, it's about making critical thinking disappear faster than Trump's campaign promises after Election Day. The ultimate takeaway from Steele's analysis is devastating. Trump doesn't label criticism as fake news because it's actually false. He does it because addressing his actual failures would require something he fundamentally lacks: honesty and accountability. It's far easier to scream fake news than to admit you made a mistake or that you have no idea what you're doing. This strategy allows Trump to control his narrative regardless of the facts, floating through life in a bubble of self-delusion where he's always winning, even when he's clearly losing. That bubble of self-delusion Trump lives in, it's about to burst when it comes to his most treasured claim, being a brilliant businessman. For decades, he's been bragging about his financial genius, but Steele just revealed what many Wall Street insiders have whispered for years. The former president approaches complex economic decisions with all the sophistication of a toddler with a monopoly board. And honestly, that comparison might be insulting to toddlers who at least know when they're losing. Let's be real, this isn't just another political jab. This criticism hits Trump where it hurts most: his ego-driven identity as a business mastermind. The guy literally built his entire brand on being a deal maker. Remember those gold letters plastered on buildings? Those weird ties? The reality show where he fired people? It was all about selling the image of Trump the business genius. But Steele's brutal assessment strips away that carefully constructed facade faster than Trump's hair in a strong wind. What makes Steele's takedown especially devastating is how he dissected Trump's actual economic approach. He didn't just mock Trump's business failures, though there are plenty to choose from. Instead, Steele zeroed in on Trump's fundamental strategy, noting that his economic policy is basically built on the assumption that if you repeat a lie enough times, people will eventually start buying it. That's not exactly the sophisticated financial strategy you'd expect from someone who claims to be a business prodigy, is it? Think about it. Actual successful business leaders rely on data, expert advice, and careful analysis. They adjust strategies based on results and learn from mistakes. But according to Steele, Trump's approach is more like a kid playing Monopoly who keeps changing the rules whenever he starts losing. When confronted with failure, Steele points out that, in true Trump fashion, every failure is someone else's fault. Sound familiar? It's the same pattern we saw throughout his presidency. Take credit for anything good, blame others for anything bad. This blame-shifting mentality explains so much about Trump's chaotic economic policies. Remember those tariffs he kept bragging about? Trump repeatedly claimed he was making China pay billions in tariffs, but in reality, American consumers were footing the bill through higher prices. It's like boasting about winning a game while your own team is scoring against itself. And just like a toddler who doesn't understand that monopoly money isn't real cash, Trump never seemed to grasp that tariffs are essentially taxes on his own citizens. The pattern of economic incompetence extends far beyond tariffs. Trump's casino businesses filed for bankruptcy 6 times. 6 times. How does someone manage to bankrupt a casino? The house always wins. Unless Trump is running it, apparently. Then there was Trump University, Trump Steaks, Trump Vodka, Trump Airlines. The list of failed ventures is longer than his ties. But in Trump's alternate reality, these weren't failures. They were someone else's fault. What's truly frightening is how this same pattern of impulsive decisions and blame shifting transferred directly to the White House. Trump approached national economic policy with the same level of sophistication he brought to his failed businesses. Big promises with zero understanding of consequences became his trademark. Tax cuts that primarily benefited the wealthy while exploding the national debt. That's the economic equivalent of a toddler grabbing all the monopoly money for himself and then wondering why the game stops working. The toddler with a monopoly board comparison is particularly apt because it captures both Trump's impulsiveness and his fundamental misunderstanding of how economics actually works. Real economic systems are complex, interconnected, and require nuanced understanding. But Trump's approach, as Steele so brutally exposed, treats the economy like a simplistic game where winning just means having the most money at the end, regardless of how you got it or what damage you caused along the way. Perhaps most damning is Steele's observation that Trump's economic messaging prioritizes manipulation over substance. Instead of crafting policies that actually help Americans, Trump focused on creating the perception of success, even when the reality was very different. It's like a kid flipping the Monopoly board when they're losing and then declaring victory anyway. This strategy might work in the short term, but eventually reality catches up. And that's exactly what happened with Trump's economic legacy. When confronted with these economic failures, Trump's response is entirely predictable. Rather than addressing specific criticisms or acknowledging any mistakes, he retreats to his standard playbook: attack the messenger, claim fake news, and boast about how great he is at business. It's the reaction of someone who's spent a lifetime avoiding accountability. Exactly the behavior pattern Steele highlighted. So what are we seeing here? A predictable pattern where Trump's reaction to criticism perfectly validates what Steele said about him. This meltdown isn't just entertaining, it's dangerous. When someone calls out Trump's weaknesses, he doesn't respond with facts or leadership. He throws a tantrum that proves the criticism right. That's why Steele's warning matters so much. Trump's inability to handle criticism makes him react with knee-jerk decisions based on his hurt feelings, and that's exactly what we don't need in charge of nuclear codes. The real question is whether voters will finally see through the tough guy act to the fragile ego underneath.